Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is Andres Jauregui, and I am the director of the Gazarian Real Estate Center in the Craig School of Business. I'm also a professor of real estate in the Craig School of Business as well.
Yeah, and thank you, Ben and Chris, for great examples to follow. I'm Jacquelin Curry, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Finance, Real Estate, and Business Law.
So today we are going to be sharing our latest insights into our real estate sentiment index that we have been collecting for a few years. Jackie will mention that. And we're also going to talk about key trends that we have seen in this last couple of years. So we're trying to provide you with a comprehensive overview of what's happened in the last couple of years in the real estate market, particularly in residential and multifamily. And hopefully we can also have some insights into what's happening in the future.
Yeah, and so our real estate sentiment, the real estate sentiment index is just that, a measure of respondents' outlooks or expectations about both the present and future market conditions. We look at several sectors in the real estate markets. We'll talk about single family and multifamily residential today, but we also calculate sentiments for ag, land, industrial, office, and retail. We've been collecting that data since 2011, 2012. And we run the sentiment index survey just about every fall and spring. I mean, we've missed a couple, but almost twice a year since then. The present and future sentiments range from 0, which would be a negative sentiment, right? And the highest is 5, which is a positive sentiment. Our respondents are local real estate professionals mostly that identify with one of those sectors. And that helps us understand what's going on in the real estate market in our area. And it provides, perspective about, like I said, what's going on, but relative to what's transpired as well, right? And then what might happen in regards to the future. Okay. The first sentiment we'll look at is the overall real estate sentiment index, which is just an average of all of the indices that we collect. And you can see here that the present index is a little bit more optimistic than the future one, but they are positively correlated, right? We're optimistic about current conditions, but we might be a little bit worried about the future when it comes to the overall sentiment. Oh,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Single family.
Alrighty, so next we go into the single family residential index. And so the progression for this has been, since spring 2022, has been increasing, I guess. We could say that. And then has been ranging between mildly positive to positive. The last index was already kind of going into the positive range, which is, of course, good. They are, like Jackie said, in the overall index, the present and the future index, they have remained close to each other with a correlation coefficient of 0.91, which means that there's a strong alignment between current and future expectations in this sector. Okay. Next, we have so that's the correlation. Next, we have the multifamily residential. So typically this involves more than 2, more than 5, all the way to more units, right? And so, but in this case, we see a little bit more, the range goes wider from neutral all the way to positive. And in this case, we see that there's going to be a larger gap between the present and the future index that suggests that at the time we collected the survey, in the future, 6 months later, they were expecting to have not so good, market conditions coming, right? And so we see that in fall 2023, a little bit in spring 2024, right? So though our survey, or we asked respondents what they think about the best investment opportunity in the area, multifamily has been, in the last few years, has been one of the most well regarded for promising investment sectors in Fresno. We do see in the numbers that there are some slowdowns in the number of units that have been permitted, okay? So this, combining with economic uncertainty, kind of explains particularly that fall, those last 2 years, that we see some kind of changes and discrepancy between the short term and the long term index, right? So let's now we're gonna talk so larger gap. So next, let's talk about the economic context at the time in this since 2022 all the way to last year, 2024, right? And so what we're seeing is that the economic context is indicating moderate economic growth. You can see that in that first real estate GDP growth, ranging less than, between 2.5% to less than 3% growth in real GDP. High inflation rate. We've all known that that's been one, it's been in the news for many, many years now, and trying to control it from the previous administration, right? And so even though it's at 2022 at 8%, almost 8, dropped to 4.3, 4.13 in 2023, there was a significant drop, but still considered to be high inflation, right? And also mortgage rates, right? That's been a key important player in the real estate market, right? And so we have that. This is so one of the things that we're seeing is that in 2022, the mortgage rates started to increase, particularly mid-2022 onwards, which created this mortgage rate lock-in effect. As the interest rate started to increase in 2022, the first effect was that people went into the market, both sellers and buyers. They went to the market to try to lock in lower interest rates. So there was a significant activity in the market. But then interest rate continued to go up, right? And so we saw towards the end of 2022 and 2023 that what is known as what we know as the mortgage rate locking effect. What is this? Basically, people that bought houses in the last decade at very low interest rates, very low mortgage rates, do not have an incentive to sell their houses, because about a survey comes in and says that from the National Association of Realtors mentions that 72% of individuals that sell a home are also buyers of a home, right? They have to turn around and they go and buy a house. And so what happens is that if you have a very low mortgage rate that you bought, let's say 10 years ago at 3.5%, 3%, you don't want to go and turn around, buy a house that it's even going to be more expensive than the one you're selling, and at the same time have to pay a higher mortgage rate. So it doesn't take a genius to realize that that's not a very wise financial decision, right? And so we saw this effect, and it's reflective in our index, particularly in 2020 and fall 2023, after mortgage rates kind of went up. Okay. And so.
Okay. So looking at some housing statistics, we can see that despite the fluctuating month-over-month house median house price changes, we've seen mostly positive year-over-year increases. And so we have some data on single-family residential homes. That's the next slide. Yeah. On single-family residential homes and then multi-family residential units that are sold. And due to the increase, again, in mortgage interest rates, no, go back.
It's a
What?
multifamily.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's almost the same line, right? And so this is single family. The next slide is multifamily. And that's due to the mortgage interest rates. The single family sales dropped. And as Dr. Jauregui had said, that multifamily residential does continue in our survey to be the top choice when we ask about promising real estate investment. And we've asked that in every survey that we've sent since 2011. And so it's interesting that that also has seen such a decrease. Okay, housing affordability.
So another indicator that we also look into is the housing affordability index. Now, this is calculated by the California Association of Realtors, and it basically says the percentage of people that can afford to pay for the median price in that county, right? The median house price in that county with a mortgage, 20% down, the typical assumption, and so on. So you can see we have here the United States, the US, the whole nation's affordability index, the California one, and then the Fresno one, right? So Fresno is in between the US average, right? And then the California. But you can see that we started off right after COVID at about 37%, and now we've dropped to almost 28%. Not as bad as California, of course, and that always is something that people in Fresno still mention, is that, well, it's not as expensive as the rest of the state, right? And so that's why we kind of calculated, we took just a simple measure of the median price in Fresno to the median price in the whole California, and you could see that it kind of fluctuates between 0.44 and 0.52. What does that mean? That on average, the median price in Fresno County in Fresno is about half of the price in California, which is kind of resonates to probably a lot of us, right? Jackie.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And so we also, like I said in the beginning, we calculate other indices for other sectors of the real estate market. And we have here that it's important to note any notable trends, but that we are not going to go into detail on those now. It says that it's notable and our observations that may impact the overall market. I think they're fun. Like, this is a lot of fun to collect this data every semester and see kind of how sentiments have changed and how they fluctuate between the sectors. And we did an ag symposium one time, and the ag sentiment was very interesting that semester because we were having a symposium because of the things going on in ag. And we could go into any of these and why they look the way they do, and then the progression between 2012 till now is just a whole bunch of data, right, on all of these different sectors. And you'll notice that that the market or Fresno is pretty optimistic about office, which we hear a lot of negativity about, right? Which is interesting, and we could so go into reasons why that might be, but we won't. It's beyond the scope of this talk. But they are a lot of, I would say, fun, notable as well, but fun to look at. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's go back. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we'll have